Okay, guys, so I think we can start. We have a good amount of people, and I'll admit all of them as soon as they come up. So we have Arijit today with us for this amazing product management session that we are organizing, and we are going to cover a lot of things into this today. So a bit of, I think I pretty much introduced very well Arijit to all of you guys, like on the emails and chats we have. But for me, like I met Arijit like somewhere around 3, 4 weeks ago, and like he's a great guy. And one famous thing, like one good thing about him is that all of the sessions I've conducted till date, Arijit is someone who has been like the most excited to do a session with all of you guys. So like that is something which I've seen like a great quality in him. Apart from that, like Arijit is a PM at Wynk Music right now, and he has a great deal of PM experience, and he has experience of working for big brands like Exigo, Ibibo, and Housing.com. Apart from that, Arijit is also mentoring a lot of startups and small companies who actually wants to start off their PM and launch their products into the market. So a few to name is that he has been an active mentor for Tapsheet and PM School and Next Tips we have. So that is all. I think Arijit, source is yours today, and if you may like to continue from here.
Hi everyone. Thank you for the wonderful intro, Sanchit. Really appreciate the fact that you have me here today. So I think you are doing a wonderful job. I mean, with HelpKart and all. I mean, so I've seen a lot of people. I've come across a lot of people, but you seem like someone who genuinely wants to help people, and that is why I agreed to sort of associate with the platform and be in front of this audience. So really great job there. And to everyone, thank you everyone for joining in, and really happy and really pleased that you have chosen to listen to me on a Saturday afternoon instead of doing what you might enjoy doing. So yeah, really thank you everyone. So I have a small presentation. It's not a it's not full of text. It's just something that I've prepared to sort of keep you visually hooked to this talk, and also to help me remember what I want to talk about, because I tend to forget a lot. Cool. So I'll just jump into my screen. Jump into sharing my screen. So just give me a sec. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So so I had coming from design background, I just had to sort of make a design for everything. Yeah. So yeah, I think a lot of people, even on LinkedIn, have reached out to me and have started asking questions about, how to get into a PM role, what is a product manager's job, what do they do on a daily basis. So combining all those questions, combining all those thoughts from other people, I've tried to come up with some pointers on that could sort of help a lot of people out, right? Okay, so before we get started, I'll just want to talk about my journey till date. So it has been rather interesting, so that's why I always talk about it. So I was studying power systems engineering in college, but I was never really interested in what I was studying, right? So, and I was always passionate about graphic design, web design, digital technology products, I always wanted to understand how apps are built and how websites are built, right? In fact, back in college, I actually designed my own video player based on ActionScript 3.0, which was Flash's programming language. Not a lot of you might have heard of Flash, but yeah, it was the thing back in 2000, the early 2010s. So it was actually, YouTube's first player was actually built on ActionScript. So yeah. So from there, I started designing websites and graphics for small mom and pop shops, for college events, and thought that, hey, let's make it into a full-time job and make more money out of it, right? So yeah, I decided to take a huge risk, which wasn't very common back then, and I started hunting for jobs on my own. I didn't sit for my placements, and that's how I started. I mean, I landed my first job as a UI engineer at a startup in Noida. uh, was there for a couple of months and then moved on to Ixigo to as a designer. Uh, at Ixigo, actually found my calling. I mean, what I realized in Ixigo was that a product manager is what I actually wanted to be, but being a designer was actually, sort of directing me towards that goal. Because what I've seen is there's a lot of overlap of skill sets. Right? Okay, so enough of blabbering. Let's get on with the actual presentation. Okay, so the first question that a lot of people have is, who is a PM? So you might have heard, in a lot of places that the PM is the mini CEO of their product. You know, PM is the idea powerhouse of a company, but honestly, that's not true. I mean, a PM's job is very different from a CEO, first of all, and the kind of authority that a PM has is very different from a CEO. A CEO can take large business decisions, right? They can take decisions which drive the company or change the direction or the route of the company, right? But a PM cannot do that. So calling that person a mini CEO is wrong. Yes, you obviously own the product. You are responsible for the success and failure of that product, but you don't get to take the larger business decisions. So you are not actually the mini CEO of a product, mini CEO of the company, right? So then who is a PM? So at the crux of it, I think a PM is actually a problem solver. The way I like to define who a PM is, that a PM is a person that figures out what's the best possible problem to solve at any given point of time, and figures out, gets everyone on the same page, brings every stakeholder on the same page, aligns them with a common vision, and then finally figures out, together, what's the best possible way to solve that problem. That is what a PM does. Right? Another a bit controversial definition from a developer or a designer point of view would be a PM is that person who does all the boring tasks so that developers and designers actually get to do what they love to do, right? If you talk to developers or designers, they generally don't like to sort of coordinate with marketing teams, sales teams, and other teams. They just want someone to do it for them because they just want to code all the time, or they just want to design all the time. So yeah, a PM is that person who does all those boring tasks for them. But from a PM point of view, it's definitely not boring. I personally don't find all these things boring. So just take note of that. Okay, great. So mm, okay, yeah. So I think the next question that I get a lot is, what is an MVP? How do we launch an MVP? And what are the things that we actually need to consider while building an MVP, right? I think MVP is the most abused term in the tech industry. Uh, Reason being, people build stripped down version of their products, and then they say that this is an MVP, and then they finally launch it in the market, and then when it doesn't work out, people say that, hey, our product failed, our idea failed, right? That's a very wrong thing to do. An MVP is not a stripped down version of your product. In fact, over the years, the MVP has actually changed. The definition of an MVP has changed, and a lot of people have understood that. A lot of people haven't. So the way MVP is being defined in the market as of today, and the way I like to define it is, it's not a minimum viable product anymore. It's the minimum desirable product, right? So let's say that you know you are a travel booking platform, right? Sorry, someone who's speaking. Okay. Yeah, imagine that you're a travel booking platform, and your idea is to build a, a, a travel search engine. Your idea is to build a discounting engine, a referral program, etc., right? Now, your MVP to test this product out is not going to be like half-baked versions of all these features and then putting it out in the market, right? It's rather going to be the core value proposition of your product. uh, and let's say that, like I said, it's a travel booking platform. So what is the core value proposition? Booking your tickets, right? For example, let's say the minimum viable product, or the minimum desirable product in this case, would be just the booking engine, right? Where users come and they uh, have origin, they have a destination, and then they have travel dates, and then they search for flights, let's say, right? So yeah, that's going to be your MVP in this case, not half-baked versions of a discounting engine or a referral program, and along with your core value proposition, right? So yeah, that's how people are abusing this term, this MVP. But you should make a note of it that MVPs are not random versions of a product, right? In fact, MVPs are highly data-driven, and they are super lean, right? So you know so honestly, ideas can come from anywhere, right? Like I said earlier, PM is not the idea powerhouse of the company. Ideas can come from customers, ideas can come from the leadership team, ideas can come from within your team, or maybe someone outside the tech team, right? So yeah, ideas can come from anywhere, but they need to be validated, not only through quantitative data, but also through qualitative data, right? A lot of PMs today, a lot of companies, they focus a lot on, you know, numbers, analytics, for example, Google Analytics, right? But it's always better to find a sort of a balance between quantitative and qualitative data. And by qualitative data, I mean real user feedback, right? You talk to your users and you know sort of figure out what are the problems they are facing and why they are facing these problems. Because most of the times, what happens is, if you just look at quantitative data, it'll tell you the why, right? Uh, Sorry, it'll tell you the what, and it'll tell you the where's, right? Where's the problem happening and what is the problem, but it won't tell you why is it happening. And if you don't know the why, you won't be able to break it down and figure out a solution to that problem. So yeah, it's always better to have a balance between both quantitative and qualitative data. Now, how do you actually build an MVP? So I'll actually illustrate this with an example. So there was a project that we were working on at housing.com, right? Where we saw that a significant chunk of people actually search for properties around certain landmarks. For example, let's say someone would search for properties around housing.com's office, or someone would search for properties around a specific metro station, right? So on and so forth. And also, the conversion rate was higher as compared to people who did not search for properties around certain landmarks, who were searching properties in a very generic fashion, like for example in a city or in a locality, right? So, and we weren't doing anything special or anything specific for them, right? Because they were a high converting audience, and the ideal goal would be to make sure that the conversion is higher over there, and more people sort of tend to go through this route, right? So yes, there were a lot of ideas, but then we were actually deciding on what are the actual uh, core value propositions that users care about when it comes to searching for properties, right? So we had every user's number, right? Whoever comes and registers on the platform or whoever drops a lead on the platform, we have their numbers. So I called them up and I spoke to them and tried to figure out what are the things that actually look for when they're searching for a property. What are the things that actually matter? Like, are there anything? Is there anything that they look at in and around the house, or maybe in the locality, or maybe any particular place that they look for that is supposed to be close to that house that they are interested in, right? A lot of interesting pointers came up. Like, for example, so basically different categories of audiences had different requirements. For example, bachelors, right? People who wanted to live in rented apartments, right? They generally wanted to live near their offices because they wanted to save up on their travel time and their travel expenses, right? People with families and kids, they wanted to live near their kids' schools so that the child may spend most of their times at their homes, right? Similarly, people who were living with their older parents, they wanted to live near their hospitals, right? So yeah, so every category of audience had different requirements, and based on this, we actually decided what our MVP could sort of look like. The pointers that came up for certain landmarks and the distance, right? How far or how near is that place to a particular landmark? So the MVP was a very simple version of where we showed a card on the search results page, and that card sort of conveyed the message that, hey, now you can search for properties around your office, around your school, or around any other landmark for that matter, right? And that sort of had to stand out because we actually wanted users to go into that flow, right? And whenever someone clicked on that card, what used to happen is the filters page used to open up, and then you could simply set a distance like within 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers or 5 kilometers, etc. And then when you click on search, what happens is you land up on a new search results page, and with every search card you have the distance of that property from the landmark that you had searched for, right? So this was something, this was simple, and this was the very first version. This was the very first version of uh, the larger goal. So that is how you build an MVP, right? That is how your MVP should look like. It cannot be a stripped down version of your ultimate goal, but it has to be the core value propositions based on research and data that you have, right? So that's how you sort of go about building an MVP. The only point over here is that it should be data driven, it should be rather data informed. It should not be some random product or that you think might be your MVP, right? Okay, now that brings us to the question: how do you actually talk to these users, right? Like I mentioned, I had back in housing, we used to call people up, but there are multiple ways to do this. On the internet you'll find a lot of frameworks and this and that, but honestly I don't follow any of them because it's very simple. I mean, you just have to talk to people, right? You can do that anywhere. You can call them up to your office. You can talk to them over the phone if you have their numbers. If you can actually go out in public places or malls and start talking to users. And personally, I've done all these three. I mean, there were awkward situations. Obviously, it's going to be really difficult in the beginning because you need to have a really thick skin for that. And that's one important aspect of product management, that you need to have a thick skin. But it gets easier with time. It becomes a part of your daily job, right? Talking to users, and you become comfortable with it, right? So do not follow any complex uh, formula or any complex framework. Just remember that it's simply about talking to users. It can be anything. It can be a simple phone call, or going up to them, or calling them to your office. It can be anything, right? Don't make it overcomplicated by uh, following a framework or something. uh, so the best way, once you've decided what mode you want to do, what mode that you want to follow, is to frame your questionnaire, right? it's very simple. Open up Google Sheets, right? Think about the kind of data or kind of information that you want to extract from your users, right? Frame questions around those requirements.
Arijit, sorry.
Great. Yeah. So I think we left at how to start talking to users, right? So yeah, like I was saying, it's very simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Once you figure out the way you want to chat with your users, you can simply pull out Google Sheets, and you can frame a questionnaire around the requirements or the data that you want to extract from your users, right? And few tips on this, do not have questions that are do not have directed questions, or do not have sessions where you handhold the user and you tell them, and you just have to be silent. You have to be silent. You ask your question and then just see or listen to the user, right? You don't say anything after that, because if you start talking to the user in at this moment, what's going to happen is you won't actually get the data that you are expecting, but you will only get what you want to. I mean, you'll only hear what you want to hear, right? And that's a very bad trap to fall in, right? Because then your data is actually very skewed. It's not the real data that you're looking for, right? So yeah, keep it simple, keep it short, and try to communicate with users. Try to empathize with them, try to put yourself in their shoes, and understand what are the problems that they could face, and understand why they are facing these problems. So yeah, that's about talking to users. Okay, so yeah, now the fun part. How do you actually launch a product? um, so this is something that I always preach, and I also practice, is you don't sell products, you sell experiences, right? um, because see, a user does not care about you. A user cares about what you can do for them, right? So for example, let's say that you are an ad tech company, right, that delivers ad, for example, someone like InMobi, right? So the way you sell your product, the way you could sell your product is uh, you know could be like, we deliver uh, targeted ads to potential customers, right? Okay, that's great, that's what you do, but what can you do for me? I mean, you delivering ads is okay, that's right, but that's not, you're not talking about me, you're talking about yourself, right? So instead what you could say is, something like, we help you deliver, instead of saying we help you deliver targeted ads to potential customers, you could probably say, uh, we help you get 10x visibility and 5x more conversions, right? So now when you've said that, you suddenly have my interest. That's what you can, basically that's what you can do for me, right? I mean, yes, you deliver ads, but what does it do? It creates, it gives me visibility, it gives visibility to my brand, it gives me more conversions, right? So yeah. And if you think about it, these large brands and these companies, they actually, I mean, don't I mean, a lot of good companies, they don't sell products, they actually sell experiences. Even physical products, even tech products, like, they sell experience. For example, Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola doesn't actually sell beverages. They actually sell, if you look at the ads and their marketing campaigns, they actually share togetherness and connectedness, right? That's what they promote always in their TV ads or whatever campaign that they're running. Facebook, for example, Facebook does not sell uh, a friend list, right? Facebook sells, uh, again, the vision of connecting the entire world together, right? Netflix, for example, Netflix doesn't sell a subscription plan. Netflix, in fact, sells cheap entertainment anywhere and anytime, right? Yeah, so these are experience. These are examples in the real world where you can see that these brands are not actually selling their products, but they're selling their experiences, right? So always remember that, you don't sell products, you actually sell experiences, right? Another very overused jargon in the tech industry is GTM, go-to-market strategy, right? This is basically, as the name is very obvious. I mean, it's basically, the way you put your product out there in the market, right? The way you launch your market. And, for this, you need to always know where your audience is, right? Because it's always about being at the right place at the right time, right? I mean, for example, let's say you're a fitness product, right? You're selling fitness. You're an app that's selling fitness products, right? Now, if you don't know what where your audience is and at what time your audience is active. Let's say you're trying to do a social media campaign, right? If you don't know which social media is flooded with fitness enthusiasts, you will uh, try to do everything for everyone, but you'll actually end up doing nothing for no one, right? So you need to know about your audience. You need to have laser sharp targeting for your audience, because different people, even though you've found your niche, within that niche, different people have different requirements, and that's where you need to figure out the intersection between your product offerings and your user goals, right? um, the reason it's very important because uh, if we continue talking about the fitness product, then fitness is a very broad term. I mean, it's a very broad niche. Within fitness, people have different requirements. For example, some people want to gain muscle, right? Some people want to lose weight. Some people just want to stay fit, right? So, and as a fitness product, you will have all these offerings in your product. But then if you try to sell all these offerings to everyone, it's not going to work, right? You have to understand that always need to have a laser sharp targeting for your audience. I mean, you have to target your, let's say, the muscle gaining audience with offerings and experiences that you have for muscle gain. For people who want to lose weight, you have different requirements. You have a different targeting campaign. You have a different launch strategy. And for people who want to stay fit, you have a different way of things altogether, right? So yeah, it's very important to know your audience and where your audience is, and uh, because, like I said, it's all about being at the right place at the right time. And it's also, again, important to figure out what are the value propositions specific to a particular category of your audience, so that you can figure out the intersection and you can do laser sharp targeting, right? Okay, now the not so fun part that a lot of people sometimes skip and don't want to talk about is, and it's something that's way more important than launching a product or something like that. It's building a culture within a team, right? How do you get to align people with your vision? It's very difficult, and honestly, it gets better with time. But and I'll be very honest with you, you'll struggle in the beginning, right? I mean, I did too. I sucked at it, to be honest, when I began product as a product manager, right? Because it gets better with experience, because you know how to deal with people, and that improves over time. you know that becomes better and better once you start dealing with people, right? So understand this one thing, that like I said in the beginning, the product manager is not a mini CEO, right? And this sort of ties up to that fact that a product manager does not actually lead with authority, because nobody reports to you. Well, unless you are sort of leading a PM team where you have different PMs reporting to you, right? But that comes at a very later stage. In the beginning, you don't actually lead someone, nobody reports to you, and someone can easily say no to your face and you can't do anything about it, right? So what do you do then? You, as a PM, you lead with influence and motivation. That's something really, really important that aspiring PMs or budding product managers need to understand, that you need to lead with influence. And how do you do that? You simply build relationships within your team. gain their trust. There are different ways to do that. First, you have to start empathizing with them. As a PM, you're not only a problem solver for your customers, but also a problem solver for your internal teams, right? You are the one that they look up to when they have blockers. You are the one who they look up to remove those blockers. You're the one they approach if they are stuck somewhere or they have certain requirements, right? So that's why it's very important to build relationships. And this is where actually a very uh, like big question arises is, and a lot of people, I mean, I think 95% of people who I've talked to have had this question, that how much tech knowledge or how much design knowledge do I need to have? Well, the short answer is it depends, right? But the more what do I say, detailed answer would be something like, um, you need to have a basic understanding, right? So you don't need to know how to code, right? Nobody is going to expect that you write JavaScript code or you write XML, right? Nobody's expecting you from that, or you work on complex algorithms, right? It's for the tech lead to do, right? But you need to have a basic understanding. Like, for example, how does the internet work, or how do APIs work? What's front end, what's back end, how do they interact with each other, right? What are the different kinds of APIs, for example, right? How does search work? So these are the basic things that you need to keep in mind, that you need to understand. And the reason for that is, you need to be able to keep up a conversation with your tech team, right? You When an engineer says something to you, you cannot simply look blank, and you cannot simply have that expression on your face where you know it is said that it communicates that, oh god, I don't have any idea what I'm talking about, what you're talking about, right? So that's why it becomes important to understand the basic tech jargons, or the lingo uh, of developers, right? And when you do that, when you start speaking the language of developers or designers, a magical thing happens, right? They start trusting you, they start treating you as one of their own, right? And that is how you build influence and gain trust, right? When they start understanding, when they start considering you as one of them, what happens is, it's easier. I won't say it's very easy, but it's much easier to influence them. It's much easier to gain their trust, right? So that's how you sort of go about building a culture within a team, right? Building trust within a team. The other thing is important here is, you need to empathize. Like I said in the beginning, you need to empathize with not only your users, but with your teammates as well. You need to be a problem solver for them. You need to be able to put yourself in their shoes and understand what are the problems that they are facing, and why are they facing these problems, and what would you have done if you faced this problem, right? So sometimes they just need moral support. Sometimes they just need someone they can talk to, right? So be that person. A PM is a problem solver, right? So be that person. I personally have, done this a lot. I mean, not only when it comes to professional uh, uh, queries or doubts or something like that, but also at a personal level. I mean, obviously you don't have to be a counselor, but uh, you need to be that person who they can trust with their, who's that confidant or something like that, right? So yeah, be a constant support to them, solve their problems. That's how you build a team. That's how you align people, by gaining their trust, and you lead with influence and motivation, right? So yeah, how do you actually transition into a PM role, right? So the underlying, rather the fact is that anyone can be a PM, right? You don't need specific education, or you don't need specific specific degree to be a product manager, right? Anyone can be a PM. They can be from sales background, they can be from marketing, they can be from design or tech or whatever, right? The few key requirements, the first and foremost requirement of being a PM is that you have a curious mind. You need to have a curious mind. You need to be asking questions all the time, right? You need to ask the right questions. You need to be you know uh, you need to be hell bent on finding out the whys. Why is something happening? Why is this built in such a way, right? These are the kind of questions you need to ask, right? And if you're comfortable with all these, if you have a curious mind and if you're always asking questions, then yes, product management is definitely for you, right? uh, have an analytical bent of mind, be comfortable with numbers, uh, because on a daily basis as a product manager, you'll be looking at a lot of numbers. You'll be looking at uh, you're working on different products, and different products will have different insights, different products will have different analytics, and you need to be able to uh, not be uncomfortable with all these things. You need to be sort of not be overwhelmed by a lot of numbers. Yeah. So yeah, be good with numbers, have a curious mind, then the door to product management is open for you, right? Some of the powers that and these are non-negotiable actually, that PM requires is a communication skills, ability to collaborate, and ability to say no. Now, communication skills, because at the core of product management, I mean, communication is at the core of product management. You have to be a great communicator, because your job is to convey messages. Your job is to put your thoughts out there, and the way you do that is by uh, being a good communicator, right? It doesn't mean that you have to be very good at a certain language or something like that, right? You have to be expressive. You have to uh, use a body language, or you have to use your way of talking to put your thoughts across the table, right? So yeah, at the core of it, communication is very, very important for product managers, because you actually communicating with different teams on a daily basis, right? The ability to collaborate. PM is basically a collaborator. Like I said in the beginning, what does a PM do? A PM figures out what's the best problem to solve at any given point of time, brings every stakeholder on the same page, and then figures out what's the best way to do it. How do you bring everyone on the same page? By collaborating, right? You need to be able to collaborate with everyone, right? Every stakeholder in the company. You need to be able to coordinate with every stakeholder in the company, right? So that is why collaborating, you have to be a team player basically. If you're an individual worker, and if you like working in silos, then product management is not for you, right? But if you're a team player, and if you like working with people, if you like working around people, then yes, uh, product management is something that you should definitely try, right? The ability to say no. This should have been the first point over here, because this is very, very important, and a lot of PMs struggle in the beginning with this. I did too, right? I know, because you'll get 1,000 ideas. You'll have ideas of your own. You'll have ideas from customers. You'll have ideas from internal team members, right? But you cannot build everything, right? You have to cut down. You have to sort of, like I said in the beginning, you have to figure out what's the best possible problem to solve at any given point of time. You get thousands of ideas. You talk to yourself. You get data that, okay, is this idea worth solving right now, or can it wait, or is it even important? These are the three questions that you should try to answer when you get an idea. Is it something that's burning right now? Is it something that I have to immediately solve? Is it something that can wait for a bit, that can be solved later? Or is it something that is not required to be solved, right? So yeah, people will hate you for this, but trust me, in the long run, I mean, because will hate you because you'll be saying no to a lot of people, no to a lot of ideas from a lot of people. But in the long run, you have to make them understand that uh, the reason you said no is because that wasn't the right problem to solve at that point of time. And how do you do that? User validation, data, right? So yeah, that's how these are basically the superpowers that a PM absolutely needs, and these are non-negotiable basically. So yeah, in order to transition into a PM role, you need to have a curious mind. You need to be asking, why is something happening, right? You need to be able to figure out the whys. You need to be comfortable with numbers. You cannot be overwhelmed with a lot of analytics dashboards, or a lot of Google Sheets or Excel sheets, right? You cannot be overwhelmed with that. You need to have really good communication skills, because you need the at the core of it, it is all about putting your ideas across the table, right? Ability to collaborate, because you aren't working alone. You are working with a team. You're working with developers who will develop the product. You're working with designers who will design the product. You're working with marketeers who market the product, right? So yes, collaborating with different teams, collaborating with different people becomes really, really important for a product manager. And yes, definitely the ability to say no, because you will get thousands of ideas and you cannot build for all those ideas at any given point of time, right? Okay, now I think this is what everyone was waiting for. uh, I'm assuming career opportunities as a product manager. So
And
back when
Arijit, we
I
have
was
the
starting.
most number of questions on this particular topic. So I
Which
think
one?
everyone wants the career opportunities, like how can one transition
Yeah,
from
yeah,
a software
definitely.
engineering role
Yeah,
from
yeah, exactly. uh, so, yeah, so we can take those questions later once I'm done
yeah,
with this, right? And I'll
definitely.
answer. I try to answer every question if I can, right?
Great, great.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So back when I was starting out, in fact, I didn't even know that a term like a role like product manager existed, right? Back in 2013 or 14, nobody sort of, in fact, yeah, yes, the bigger companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, mainly outside of India, they had product managers. But in India, this term, this role is relatively new, right? You can imagine this, gaining some traction within the last 3 or 4 years, right? So I actually got to know about a product manager in 2015. That was my second job, right? That's actually at Ixigo. Like I said, I came across the first product manager that I ever met. Uh, that's when I understood that, hey, there's a role that is pretty interesting, and deals with numbers and deals with talking to customers every day, has a lot of ownership, and is a driver of things, right? So yeah, that's when I came to know. And coincidentally, this person wasn't actually from India, right? This person was actually based in the US before he came back to India, and he was a product manager at a US based company, right? And so he sort of brought that culture of product from the US in at Ixigo, right? I mean, yes, it was definitely there. The product culture was there, but he sort of formalized it for everyone. So yeah, yes, the PM role is both professionally and financially rewarding, and the demand for PMs has gone up multifold. I mean, it's gone up like crazy, to be honest. Today, every company, even a startup that has 30 or 40 people, they have at least one product manager, right? And it becomes really important, because someone needs to drive the daily tasks. Someone needs to own the product. I mean, without a product manager, what happens is people start working in silos, right? Developers start simply coding, the designers simply start designing, marketers simply market. Nobody works collaboratively, right? That's when product manager comes in. And like I said, a lot of companies, a lot of startups have realized that, and that is why the demand for product managers has increased like crazy. In fact, one cool stat over here is that, in 2019, uh, product management was ranked as the fifth, uh, as fifth on Glassdoor's best jobs in America, right? So that's an important stat over there. Yeah. Okay. This is, and I know I understand that you'll have a lot of questions, and we can take those questions right after the session, because I'm pretty much towards the end of the session right now. Just probably 1 or 2 slides. Okay. So hold on to those thoughts and questions, please. Okay. This is my favorite part, actually. So I joined Wynk actually 2 months back, right? And it's been pretty exciting. I mean, I'm loving it over here, and a lot of interesting things that are happening at the moment, right? The one of the biggest releases in recent times is Wynk concerts. I mean, I don't know how many of you use Wynk or are aware of Wynk concerts, but it's essentially where artists, music directors, singers, they come live on the platform and then they perform for you, right? And they can take your request, right? And we had a lot of people recently. We had Arman Malik, we had Akasa, right? Next Friday, we'll have Sachit Tandon and Parampara on the platform, right? So there are a lot of people. I mean, it's pretty exciting to see them perform live on your platform. And if you haven't seen it, I would request you to sort of download the app and experience it and see, and obviously I would be happy open to feedback. I mean, I personally did not release that product. It was released before I joined, but yeah, it's something that as a company that we are excited about, right? Yeah. And like I said, a lot of things are in work. um, One of the most interesting things is something that I am personally working on, and this will probably be my first major release uh, at Wink. And it's going to come out soon. And when I say soon, I actually mean like very soon, maybe a few days. So you have to wait for that if you're interested. That is, but it's going to be fun. I mean, this product or this feature, right? It's going to be fun. It's going to be uh, uh, well, all I can say is it's going to be fun and not a lot. I cannot disclose a lot, but hey, it's actually, I've still hidden it. I cannot. I'm sorry, I cannot disclose it. But I've written it over there, but I'm not going to disclose it right now because I'm really excited because I cannot wait to tell everyone about this because my first release, but I cannot.
You are
So
just
sorry
building
about
a
that.
suspense
You
for
have
us.
to wait. Yes, I am, I guess. So yeah, you have to wait and download the Wink app, wait for it, and when it's released, it's going to be soon. Trust me, it's going to be a few days, right? So
So
yeah,
I
and I
think we
would
pretty
love
much
to.
all of us have the Wynk
Yeah.
app right here.
Oh, that's amazing. Then all the more reason to share feedback. I mean, we can take a lot of feedback in this session itself, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think that's it from my side. I have been talking a lot. I mean, I haven't really spoken for this long at a stretch in a long time, and it felt great, to be honest. I mean, I love talking. So yeah, I can take questions now.
So, Arijit, I would cover up few questions quickly. Like most of the questions are pretty much around one simple thing, that how one can actually put a step into the product management role. Like I am actually a software engineer. How can I get an associate PM role? Maybe like, breaking in the first time, like which platforms to choose for applying for jobs, and, may it be AngelList, may it be LinkedIn, like, getting the first good break as a PM. That
Right.
is one primary question we have.
Got it. Uh, I think if you're trying to switch from developer, like software developer, or maybe a designer, uh, so especially actually the question is about switching from development, right?
Yes, absolutely
Is
right.
it? Okay. Yeah. So the one thing that becomes very different when you're switching is, obviously you have to be a collaborator. You have to be able to coordinate teams. You have to start doing that, right? But what becomes more important is, you have to understand that building products is not about shipping code, right? You have to put the user first. That is something that a lot of software developers, and I mean no offense to anyone, but a lot of software developers don't think about, right? That putting the user first, caring about their needs. Yes, you have, like when you were a software developer, you were building scalable software. You were building software that has the lowest downtime, maybe. So, but then as a PM, you don't get to sort of, that's not your primary goal, right? It is obviously one of your goals, but that's not your primary goal. You have to be your primary goal is to build products that delight users, that solve users problem. So I think that's one of the biggest uh, uh, changes that happen when you switch from a individual contributor development role to a product management role, right? So yeah, if you put the user first, try to empathize with the user, put yourself in their shoes, and you know just try to solve for their problems and figure out why are they facing a certain problem. Think about the whys. I mean, start thinking about the whys. Why are they facing this problem? What can be done to solve those problems? Be open to talking to users, right? These are the certain things that you should change about your way of working when you're looking to move into product management from a software development role.
Got it, got it, got it. Okay, so we have a few more questions flowing in. One is from Bitwise, that any thoughts on people from analytics, BIDS moving towards PM? And one more we have, it's I think pretty much similar to the one we have. Like we have Arijit around 5-6 minutes remaining. So if you can wrap up the questions in the chat quickly.
Okay, sure. So from an analytics role, so the one very good thing about being from an analytics background is that you have an analytical bend of the mind and you are comfortable with numbers, right? And like I said in the beginning, you have to be very comfortable with numbers. You cannot be overwhelmed by a lot of data in front of you. Right? But the thing is that when you are in a core analytics role, your job is to extract the data, your job is to create all these graphs, your job is to see the performance. Mostly it's all about extraction of data, right? Visualizing the data, right? That's very important when you're in a core analytics role. But then when you make the switch, what happens is extraction of data is not really that important right now for a product manager. What is important is being able to draw insights from those numbers, being able to draw insights from the data that you have. For example, you could say you could probably have seen a drop in engagement, right? And that's what you report as an analytics guy, that hey, we saw a drop in engagement or we saw a drop in installs, right? Now that is core analytics for you. But then when you move to a PM role, what happens is, in the same case, you have to be able to figure out why this has happened, and you have to decide what are the other data points that you could look at to drive insights from this. Like, has it actually dropped, or has it come to uh, a level where it was previously and there was a sudden spike in between, due to which installs or maybe engagement had increased? Was it seasonal? Things like that. You have to be able to draw insights, and you have to be able to make sense of that data. That is what becomes important when you're a PM, rather than extracting the data, reporting these graphs, creating Excel sheets or creating pivot tables. So yeah.
Awesome, Arijit. So I will actually pick up one last question. That is, if you can recommend any books or any blogs, if you especially follow, like for getting ideas, or maybe nourishing your ideas, something like that, you can tell us about.
Some of the books that I recommend for PMs, I mean, it's actually different for if someone is trying to prepare for an interview, or if someone is actually trying to build their product knowledge base, right? So if you're someone uh, who wants to build their knowledge base, then there are lots of resources. Like if you're looking at books, then there's a book called The $100 Startup, and there's a book called The Lean Startup, right? I think that's actually very important. It's actually a must read for all PMs, The Lean Startup, right? So there's a book called Hooked, which actually by Neil Eyal, which actually teaches about how to build engaging experiences, right? How to make sure that users are hooked to your product, how to make sure that users keep coming back to your product, right? Uh, the other book is Influence, right? I don't exactly remember the title. I read it a long time ago. It basically, it's one of the best sellers, to be honest. And it, as obvious as the title, name of the book, it actually teaches you how to influence people and what are the things that what are the points that you need to hit when you are trying to influence people, right? What else? Other resources that you could look at probably is a YouTube channel called The Product School, and I have been following uh, this channel for a long time. I think for the last 3 or 4 years. In fact, maybe since its inception, like in
You
2014
also
or 15, if
posted
I'm not
about
wrong.
it on LinkedIn once, I remember.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're trying to build a knowledge base, Product School is something that you should follow on YouTube, or maybe if you listen to podcasts and whatever podcast app that you use. I personally use something called Castbox, but yeah, they have their podcasts as well. So basically, PMs from different companies like Amazon, Uber, Google, Facebook, they come and then they talk about certain topics and what are they doing at the companies, and probably how to get hired at one of these companies. So yeah, you should follow
Okay.
uh, Product School.
Ajit, we have one last question and like 1.5 minutes remaining for the session. And I still
Okay.
think people are having doubts related if I'm a fresher out of BTech degree and like if you can quickly answer about like how one can apply for jobs. Like
It's
I think
actually
people are
it's
more concerned about the platforms and the way of applying, maybe resume, some sort of special things.
right. um, so one thing that I would suggest is be active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like a is the place to be if you're trying to sort of uh, grow in your professional life. Everyone is on LinkedIn. Every head of product, every hiring manager, every HR is there on LinkedIn. Connect with them, see what they are doing, what they are talking about, right? Most of the times these people post about openings. Keep an eye out for that. And don't start talking about start conversations, but don't start talking about that you're looking for a job or you're looking for an internship right from the get-go. But start a conversation. Tell them that you find the company exciting, and you really love that what the team is doing right now, and you would be interested in becoming a part of the team, right? So that's how you start.
Okay.
And one thing that I always tell people, do not go and click on the apply button, right? The chances of getting hired or getting noticed decrease like anything, because there are thousands of applicants in a day, and you can do the math, right?
Okay, cool. Okay, thanks a lot, Arijit, for giving us insights on the PM role. And I think we are running really short on time. So thank you guys, everyone, for joining in. And thanks a lot, Arijit, for giving us
Yeah.
some time. And I think we'll meet up again. I'll share the video link just in case we messed up like a few minutes in between. And thanks a
Okay.
lot, Arijit, for showing up. And thanks a lot, everyone, for coming up and showing up sometime on the
By
weekend.